Not that it's a contest, but if it were going to be a contest, today's guest would win. Now, the contest that I'm thinking about is which guest is the furthest away from our studios here in Phoenix, Arizona. So before we get to number one, which by the way is today's guest, here are the top 3 or 4. You go back a couple of last year. It was Umar from Essex, London, from Dope Black Dads. Remember that dude? He was so awesome. 2,200 miles away, Essex from Phoenix. And then we talked to Johan Hari, who resides in Glasgow, and he's about 4,900 miles away. Last year, we had Ken Honda on the show from Japan. He was 5,800 miles away. And today's guest shatters all kinds of records as we head to the port city of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. 8,187 miles away from my home here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a beautiful Arabian port city on the Red Sea, and it absolutely looks stunning from the photos that I've seen online. Today's guest had a hell of a journey getting there, and that's some of what she's here to share today. Now, what I love about today's interview is that we're sitting down with a former D1 athlete. Now, high performers, the people who play at the highest levels, man, they just see life differently. They think about life differently. And I love sitting down with other high performers and hashing out the mindset of how do you stay focused? How do you stay on task? How do you fully understand your role? How do you stop reacting emotionally and start reacting intellectually? And that's some of what we're going to talk about today. Let's go.
Find and learn from people who lived it, wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from people who lived it.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Okay, hi, my name is Ronnie Laughlin. I live in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
Okay, what story are you here to share today, Ronnie?
I'm here to share my story about my breast cancer journey that I had during the pandemic while living in the Middle East.
Who do you hope hears this?
Oh, I had to make some notes on that. I hope a lot of people hear it.
Yes, okay.
First and foremost, I hope that people who've been given a breast cancer diagnosis hear it, because I think my story today will give you a lot of insights into caregivers and also the cancer patient and what to expect and how to navigate the medical world. And also I hope that oncologists, radiologists, nurses, anyone in the medical field hears it, because I learned so much from my doctors and from my nurses. And I'm very curious. I always ask a lot of questions. So I learn from them and they learn from me. So I'm hoping that they hear it and they can learn something and be better caregivers. I'm also hoping that family members hear this story, because it's important that they understand what the cancer patient is going through. It's something that's unlike any other journey that people go through. And I think if you have a little bit of insights as a family member about what the person with cancer is going through, I think you're more able to help them. And I think that's it. I think that covers everybody.
No, I love that you thought that out, because as you and I were both chatting before the podcast started, I said, we ask people who they were going to hope here is it, and I always encourage people to dig a little deeper than everyone. And so the fact that you had such a great specific list, bravo to you. So
thank you.
I'm so excited to jump into this episode with you, Ronnie. You came to us because you had found us on your podcast platform. You were listening to Ken Honda, you reached out, you said, yo, man, I've got a story to share. And when I read up on you, Ronnie, I was like, oh my God, there is so much to this woman. And so what I'd like to do to start our interview today, which is a little atypical, because typically I ask for the first 10 years of your life, and we may get there, is I want to toss out some words that somebody could associate with you. And then you tell me where you want to start. Are you ready?
Okay, ready.
So here we go. Let me list all the words, and then you tell me where you want to begin. Traveler, golfer, color analyst, Amazon bestseller, breast cancer survivor, speech pathologist, Division I athlete. All words that are associated with you, friend.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? What word stands out? What word jumped out at you?
Wow. What word jumped out? I'm going to start with the Division I basketball player first, because that's kind of a strong foundation from which I jumped off of everything else with regard to my discipline, my focus, my strategies for handling a lot. So as a Division I basketball player, I played at NC State for Kay Yao. I'm not sure if you know that she was a great coach. She was a Division I coach at NC State, and she actually fought breast cancer for about 20 something years. And she succumbed to the battle, but she taught so many lessons along the way. And I was fortunate to, be a player of hers and just learn from her with regard to her discipline, her focus, her ability to organize and that sort of thing. And I called on her many times during my breast cancer journey, just for my perseverance to keep going and to, keep my movement going and to keep believing and hoping that, everything would be okay. So, one of her little Yaoisms is that, with pity, you can't, wallow in it. You have to swish your feet in it and keep on going, So that being a Division I player, I think really, really was beneficial for me in digging deep and going deep during my cancer journey.
So that does lend itself to a great natural follow-up question on the podcast, which is the first 10 years of people's lives. And so how did you come to be this Division I athlete? Who is Ronnie, the young little girl, and grows up into this teenage girl who grows up into this amazing basketball player and is lucky enough to be a D1 athlete? So walk us back a little bit. What's the beginning like?
Sure. So I gave this a lot of thought. So I think it comes from my parents. My parents were both pretty industrious. My dad was a former military guy, and he was also from the rural area. He's a country boy. My mom was from the rural area, and just two industrious people who were both very disciplined and very organized. My mom was a stickler for schedules. She believed in being on time and organizing everything. And my dad was a very, very strict disciplinarian. He he was the kind of person who I think if FAFO could have been invented a while when he was living, he wasn't the person you wanted to mess around and find out what would happen. You just didn't. So, you knew the consequences for your behavior. So I was a very observant child, I had two older brothers that I wanted to be like. And if they played basketball, football, baseball, whatever they did, I wanted to do the same thing. So that's where I got all my athletic prowess from, I think. And, moving on into elementary school, I went to a private Catholic school, and, we just played all the time. It was always basketball to play, kickball, volleyball, that sort of thing. So, and being tall, I was always one of the tallest girls in my class. So I just had a natural affinity to go toward the athletic side of things. And so that's kind of how I started down the whole athletic route.
So because we're on a podcast, people can't see, how tall is Ronnie, the basketball player?
Ronnie used to be, in her glory days, Ronnie was 6 feet, but now Ronnie's probably about 10 3/4 because Ronnie's been shrinking. Ronnie's been shrinking, but
I'm suffering from the same thing, Ronnie. Don't worry about it. I think it's just a natural progression, huh?
We all do. We all do. So it's so crazy.
Let's go back to the D1 piece for just a second, and then I really want to move us through some of these other things, get us closer to the breast cancer diagnosis. And, I mean, this is the book that, by the way, I should just kind of say to everybody that's watching us right now, there is a book that's out right now, and that's it right there. It's on the screen, and we're going to get into that in just a couple of seconds. But I want to talk about, to be a Division I athlete. And I love this conversation for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is that I've been a youth hockey coach for almost 20 years of my life. And I coach high school kids. And so I'm around youth athletes all the time. And so I'm fascinated from that perspective. I'm also really, really into sports psychology and high performance mindsets. I was a radio and television broadcaster for almost 30 years of my life. And I think the two mediums that move at the same pace are sports and entertainment. They like, nobody cares, right? Next play. Right. Nobody cares how you feel about it. There's a thing to be done. That's all that matters. And we're getting better with some of that. But So here we go. Here's the first question. Sorry, that's a long way to set that up.
It's okay.
The mindset of a
Mm-hmm.
Division I athlete is probably the thing that I would guess would separate 1A from 1B. Because eventually you get to a stage of the game where everybody can shoot, everybody can run, everybody can pass, everybody can do all the things, the tactical things that need to be done, and it becomes about what's floating around up here. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about maybe what your coach instilled in you or what you naturally brought to the table in terms of a high performance mindset and a D1 athlete?
Yeah, Matthew, I think you hit it on the nail on the head. I think when you said what you bring to the table, you know, when you're building a team, and you know this from youth hockey, that everybody has a talent, everybody has a special skill or skills that they bring to the table. So as a coach, it's up to you to say, okay, you know, Mike brings this and we can do this with the team, and Johnny brings this, he can do this. So, you know, when the coach does the assessment of the individual players, she determines, or she or he determines, what are the assets and the strengths of the player. So they begin to build those in you, and you begin to understand what your role is. And I think it's very important that Division I athlete, they all understand their specific role that's going into the total role for the team. You know, you look at the UConns, you look at the South Carolinas, they're all great athletes, but everybody makes a different kind of contribution, but collectively they bring that to the table and they get those championships. So it's that kind of thing that, you know, it's a conglomeration, I think, of the coach having the good assessment skills. Number one, to identify what kind of players she needs or he needs to bring to the team to make the team he wants to make. And then blending all that together, making sure that those egos stay at bay, you know, because we had, you know, how many think we had like 3 All-Americans on our team when I played. And, you know, they all had different talents and skills, but those 3 All-Americans couldn't have made the team without the other 2 players, you know. So it's about keeping that mindset strong and keeping it under control, and knowing that, you know, Ronnie Laughlin brings this. She rebounds. She has a nose for the ball. She has a good up and under move. You know, she's good at the outlet pass, you know, and that's what you do. And you learn to do that really, really well. And somebody else does something else. So it's pulling all those skills together and uniting it together to make that team strong. And I think that's what separates your mediocre player from your superior player from your elite player.
Okay, this is a very easy segue for me. Now I want to talk a little bit about, you know, the book and the breast cancer journey that you found yourself on, because you talked about how the D1 athletes sort of set the foundation for the way that you were going to have to face off to this. And by the way, you're not off the hook yet on speech pathologist, Amazon bestseller, color analyst, golfer, and traveler. Those are all coming still.
Okay, good.
You got this breast cancer diagnosis in what year?
In 2020, just as the pandemic was kicking off over here.
And you were in Saudi Arabia for this situation, correct?
Yes, correct.
So I think we have to strip this back just a little bit. Can you help us understand what healthcare looks like in Saudi Arabia and where it stacks with what's happening here in America, or what most people could see as, you know, a baseline healthcare system?
So the healthcare in Saudi Arabia that I received was excellent. It was excellent. I don't know too much about the healthcare in the States because I really never have had to take a lot of part in that. Even when I was there, I was fairly healthy. But the healthcare that I received here was top notch, and I'm so glad it was. I mean, state of the art treatment, just like we would have you. That's what I would guess. Yeah, very, very good treatment. My insurance covered everything. It was amazing. It was just amazing. So you find out that you got this breast cancer diagnosis, and one could think or maybe assess that you live in Saudi Arabia, and do you have a community of people around you? Do you have a family, or what's the support system like when you get this diagnosis? I don't have a family. I'm over here by myself, but I have friends. But good. I have friends, and they were very helpful. I didn't tell a lot of people, as you know. I'm not sure if you've read the book, but I didn't tell a lot of people only because I had a friend who died many, many years ago, my best friend. And this was before all the media and everything. And we had to send out emails to people, and people were sending emails. And I saw how exhausted she was trying to get information out to people. And I knew that because the pandemic and our very strict, we had very, very strict rules and regulations here in Saudi Arabia. We did the pandemic totally different than y'all did in the States. We had curfew, we had curfews, we had days hours you couldn't go out. There were places you couldn't go. We had to have an app on our phone that showed your immunity status. I mean, they weren't playing over here. And if you didn't do it, you were deported. So I knew that I wouldn't have a lot of people coming into my environment to help me, because I knew getting chemo, my immune system would be low, and I didn't want to run the risk of, if they had been out, were they going to bring COVID, that sort of thing. So I kept my tribe very, very small that I told about my breast cancer, but they were all supportive. The 2 or 3 people that were here in Jeddah, they always called to ask if I needed anything from the supermarket, or if I needed anything. So they were very, very supportive. But my family, I didn't have an immediate family here, no. Okay. But they became my family, kind of.
Totally. Yeah. So the bottom line is, you had support. You had people you could lean on. You had people that you could talk to. You had people that you could trust. You had great medical care. Okay. I just thought that it was really important to set that baseline so that everybody understand, like, they can kind of visualize in their head kind of like what's happening for you. So now here we go. We're going to jump into the deep end of the pool. You ready?
Okay.
We'll get you back to the podcast in just a second. I just wanted to mention briefly that you probably know somebody who needs to hear today's podcast. Just take a second and send them a quick text message with the link, and put a little heart on there, and just say, heard this today and thought of you. All right, let's get back to the podcast. You mentioned just a few minutes ago that, understanding your role is pretty key in being on a successful team. And you just also mentioned that this team of people around you, whether it was doctors, nurses, friends, that is the team. That becomes the team now. So the question is, two points here. How did you keep your ego at bay? And how did you step into your role as somebody who needed to be a patient who was going to get care and have to, like, really take care of yourself?
Well, I've had good mentors along the way, Matthew, in my life, and I called on them. One of my mentors, Amelia Hudson, she passed during the pandemic with due to pancreatic cancer, but she had breast cancer, lung cancer, and then pancreatic cancer. Wow. But she had taught me, though, to there are ways that you respond to situations. You can act intellectually, or you can act emotionally. Okay. So an emotional reaction is, oh my God, it's just a crazy thing, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get the problem solved, but an intellectual approach does. So when I got my breast cancer diagnosis, I did something that's probably a little bit wacky, I guess. I don't know. But when I had the ultrasound done, and the person during the ultrasound kept going over the same spot over and over and over again. You're in this position like this, and they're going over and over. And I finally just asked her, because I'm curious. I said, what are you looking at? And she was a really nice little Sudanese girl, a technician. And she said, she kind of took a deep breath and, like, they're not supposed to tell you that kind of information, but I'm a Westerner, I'm going to ask questions. Right. And so I said, she said, turn around. And so I'm up like this, and I turned. She said, you see this spot here? This is a pretty normal. See how round that is? And I said, yeah. She said, this one right here? She said, that's not round. She said, I'm trying to get a good look for I'm trying to get a good capture for the doctor so the doctor can see. She said, the doctor repeat it when she comes in. And I said, okay. And so when the doctor came in, she did the same thing. And again, over and over and over, my left breast, fine, just quick. And then the right breast, over and over. And she said, I don't like that one. And she said, you see this one here? It was the same one that the technician had pointed out. And she says, I want to do a biopsy. And I said, okay. I said, can you do that now? She said, what? And I said, can you do it now? She said, well, if you can get approval, yeah, we can do it. And so when she we did it right the same day. That's something you wouldn't get in the States. You would not have gotten your
We'll see you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, 6 months, you got the ultrasound, go get your biopsy. And so I stepped out in the hall in my gown and got on my phone with the app and got approval, came back into the room. She prepped me, and got the biopsy. And as she was taking the biopsy sample in the jar, I said, can I get a picture of that? Because I started thinking I might want to write a book about this. And so I got a
Ah,
picture of it and I looked at it, and Matthew, it looked like, do you remember a hydra in high school? Did you ever study
Hydra.
hydras? The little thing that had all the little tentacles.
Do you
It
see
was
the
in
look
the,
on my face? Maybe
it was
not. Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
science class. Anyway, much older than you, or you may have studied something more complex, but we had hydras. And so it
I
looked
don't
like a
know if I
hydra.
paid attention to any of it, Ronnie. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. But it looked like a hydra, had a lot of these little tentacles and
Okay.
this stuff. And I looked at it, and I don't know why I asked her, but I asked her, I said, "Doctor, have you ever seen it look like cancer and it not be?" And she was taken aback. She looked at
Oh.
me and she said, "No." So when I left the hospital that day after the ultrasound and the biopsy, I knew 99.9% of chance that I had cancer.
Hmm.
And so, I got in the car because I had driven myself, and got in the car, and I thought, Heavenly Father, just give me strength to walk in and out of this hospital for all the treatments that I need. That's all I asked. Just give me strength to walk in and out. And I was granted that. But
Wow.
yeah, it was, I took a whole intellectual approach to it, to answer your question. And
Yes.
I didn't have time to panic, because it was just going to be me. So I took it from an intellectual approach. I did my research. I was always prepared with questions. I had a little notebook that I took to all of my appointments, that I had questions that I asked or wanted to ask, and then responses. I kept my dates all in order, and that's all my mom. She used to journal and do all that kind of stuff. So I got that from her.
How did you deal with, and there must have been a couple of emotional days. I mean, my God, you're battling cancer. There had to have been fleeting moments of, like, a
I
little
tell
bit
you
of
that
pity.
yeah,
So,
the fleeting moments came when that cancer related fatigue set in. They don't
yes.
really tell you about that. And if you've never had anyone to go through cancer, you don't know about it. But you get your chemo, and after you get your chemo, I had just like a full feeling in my body. And um, about 7 days later, you get this fatigue that's unlike any fatigue that you've ever felt. It's just not tired. I likened it in the book to, those concrete barriers that you see on the highway that they put up for, like, when they're doing construction, those big long pieces of concrete.
I do.
That's what it felt like was laying on me that morning. I woke up on my 7th day after my first chemo, and I thought, if this continues, I don't know if I can do this. I said, that's a lot. So I started Googling, ways to get energy. I did ginseng. I did vitamin B, vitamin 6, B6, B12, trying to get some energy some way or another. And, the good thing about cancer related fatigue is that it doesn't last the whole time. So it lasts anywhere from 7 to 10 days. But by the time you start feeling good, it's time for another round of
I
chemo.
know. I was just thinking, then the cycle
Then
sets
it
in
starts
again.
again, and then it's compounded. So it accumulates. The fatigue accumulates each round. So by the time I got to the third round of chemo, I was operating on fumes, man. I walked into my oncologist office. I said, Dr. Aldine, I said, I am not like your Saudi moms. I said, I don't have a nanny to help me I said, it's just me. I said, I've got to do something for this fatigue. So I had done some research. Matthew, there was one study from the National Institutes of Health that wasn't even a statistical difference, not even a statistical difference, that this drug helped. So I got this drug that helped tremendously with my cancer related fatigue. And that's how I got through my last round of chemo. Had it
Was
not
it
been for that.
cocaine? Was it cocaine?
No, kind of, sorta, kind of like it though. It was a what do you call those? What class of drugs is that?
Oh, I don't like kind of speed, kind of an
Kind of a
upper,
speed. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
It was the main
like an
derivative.
epinephrine or something.
It was the main derivative that they use for ADHD kids.
Oh, there you go. There you go. That's
Yes.
great. Well, it
Yes.
helped. That's all that, and what's interesting about what you're talking about is just this past May, I lost my best friend of, 30 plus years to his battle with cancer.
Oh, wow.
And it was really, really just, it's just a tough thing to watch somebody get taken out by it. And he's somebody who I just look up to with so much regard because he did a lot of what you just talked about. He hit this thing completely intellectually, and he went to these meetings and he sat with these doctors, and if they told him to eat kale and cabbage, he went home and made a kale and cabbage salad, right? Like, he did the work, and he said, and because of that, he got himself healthy again. And then, it came back in a few different areas, which, you talked about your best friend had a similar situation to that. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the moment that you find out you have breast cancer. I like to talk about this framework when I'm speaking to people, and it's about, when we experience things and they bother us, we kind of have to take this approach of we have to renegotiate, what we want that situation to look like. Right. We have to release anything that we're hanging on to. We have to reset, which means start taking care of ourselves. And we have to reprogram ultimately, like how we're going to move forward once we've gone through those steps. So as you got healthy, is it okay if I move us through the breast cancer and all the treatments? And so now you come out of this thing, and can you talk to us about the day that you, you felt good again? And then I want to jump into that sequence.
I'm not sure if I do have days where I feel good. I still get very, very tired. But I talk to my doctors about it all the time, and I ask them. I tell them I'm not sure if it's the remnants of the chemo and the radiation, or if it's just getting older.
I'm getting tired, Ronnie.
It's 9 o'clock. I want to be in bed. So I do have days where I feel pretty good. But it's never. I don't, once you go through cancer, you are never the same person. I just don't have that same level of energy. But again, I'm not as young as I was, 4 years ago either. So, and the damage that the chemo does to your body, to your bones, it just kind of beats you down a little bit. Yeah. But I'm still kicking, I'm still moving, and it doesn't limit me it doesn't limit me in doing anything that I want to do. Like I still golf and that sort of thing. So.
But in a sense, you've had to renegotiate how you live life. You've had to renegotiate what does this look like? Okay, I don't have the same energy that I had before.
Right.
So how can I, release what I believe to be true about how I'm supposed to do this thing, and then reset myself so that I can reprogram and try something new? And it seems like that's what you've done for yourself. Like you mentioned, I golf, right?
Yeah.
I golf. What an incredible activity for somebody who wants to be athletic, but doesn't want to feel like they just went through a HIIT class every time they, they do something, right? And golf's great. It's leisurely. I know that you teach as a speech pathologist, so there's, there's an opportunity to be mentally focused, but not high physical performance. And so you've found this cool little way to live life again. Do you feel like you've found yourself again, or do you feel like you're still putting it back together?
I do. I think we're always putting it together, right?
That's true.
Because, we're always reinventing, and, we're not the same person we were yesterday, and we don't know who we're going to be tomorrow either. But today, in the moment, I navigate just moment by moment. So, I'm feeling good. I move every day, and the weekends are reserved for golf. And, I work out every day or do some kind of stretching or weight bearing exercises just to keep myself and my bones healthy. So you do renegotiate. Not that I didn't have a lot to negotiate though, Matthew, because I had a pretty healthy lifestyle prior to, which was very, very helpful thanks to my parents, and their role models and healthy eating and, that sort of thing. So I didn't have a lot to change over. It's not like I was obese and now I have to start eating healthy. I was always leaning towards maybe a plant-based diet, but never really did. But after the cancer hit and doing some research on red meat and chicken, I was like, nah, I ain't doing that no more. No. So now I'm more plant-based and more, I do a little bit of seafood, that sort of thing. But seafood over here is really, really good and it's pretty kosher. So just been, kind of just slowly moving through and changing and kind of morphing into a healthier, healthy version of what I was before.
Yeah. All right. Well, one of the things that you talk about, and maybe I saw this on your website or I saw it in the book or something like that, but it says Ronnie's game plan includes action plans in all 4 realms. She researched online, communicated with close friends, drank gallons of water, ate high-protein foods, exercised, and talked with God. And there was something about that I just thought was so freaking simple And such a great recipe too for success in just about every area of your life, right? To learn what you need to learn, as you said, to like, let me go through this intellectually. Let me learn what I need to know so that I have the information that I need to. Let me get that close circle of people around you who are going to help you do your thing. Let me eat right. Let me drink right. Let me move right. And so now I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about the last part, which is your conversations with God. And what role did you feel like that connection to God played in your healing?
I think it played a big role. I'm Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic, from birth. I've been Catholic. So, and I'm a believer. I know that that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and I know that I'm here for a purpose. And I think that the cancer was just part of my journey, and I think that part of my going through that journey was to write the book to help others. I really, really believe that, and that's when. I really don't remember the day that I decided to write the book, but I just knew that with the information that I had and how I navigated everything and how I come through everything, I knew that I needed to share this information with people. And, I pray every day. I talk to God. I'm grateful for his grace and mercy for allowing me to get through. And if I can get this book out to others to help them, then that's a bonus.
So can I just pause you really quick? Because what I want to make sure I articulate to my audience is there was a time in my life where I too was wrapped up in Christianity. And then I went through that phase where I didn't like it. And then I got to a place of adulthood where I understood it. And now I'm at a stage of my life where I appreciate it. And I know that a lot of people can get tripped up when anybody starts talking about any kind of religious connotation. But what I want to encourage my audience to do in this moment is not get so much stuck on the words, because then you sort of close yourselves off to the conversation. So what I hear when Ronnie talks is that she's trying to connect herself to something bigger than herself. And so I just want, and that's really what this is about. And ultimately, surrendering, right? And you hear that a lot when people say it, but what does that mean? It means let me let go of control. Let me give this thing up because it's not mine to carry. And as you mentioned in the book, what is to be will be, and I'll be fine with it either way, because I just trust the process. I trust what's happening right now. And so I just felt like I wanted to pause you in that moment, because I want people to understand that that's the role that spirituality and religion can play in your life in terms of helping you get out of really difficult situations. Because it can feel like it's impossible to do this stuff on your own, and you don't need to, right? Like, you don't have to believe in Jesus. You can find your own version of whatever that thing. And latch onto it because it's powerful. So anyway, back to you.
You hit the nail on the head, I think, because it wasn't just me, and it never has been me, and I know that. So when you know that, you kind of, like you said, surrender, and you say, whatever will be, and, just lead me and guide me. You ask for the signs, so, one of the signs was that, I
use these beads, right? Like when I'm freaking out, this is what I run to, is my mala beads. And I say, I let go. And I trust the process of life. I let go and I just surrender to where I'm at in this moment. And I trust this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. How many times did you have to do that?
A lot.
You probably know somebody who needs to hear today's podcast. Just take a second and send them a quick text message with the link and put a little heart on there and just say, heard this today and thought of you. All right, let's get back to the podcast.
I never asked God, why me? I never cried about it or anything like that. I just took it, and I knew that I needed to do something more with it. I took it as almost a gift.
Yeah, well, and you said it, right? Like in the moment where you're getting the first little x-ray or scan, you're like, I think I'm going to write a book about this. And so you've felt, and you and I are so similar in this regard, Ronnie, is a few years ago, I made the decision to walk away from my radio career. And it was one of these moments where I was in the middle of a retreat, and it just came to me so crystal clear that I was going to have this podcast, and I was going to call it Learn from People Who Lived It. And I was going to bring people onto this show, and I was going to ask them to please share the most vulnerable parts of their life and how they navigated out of those things. And then people would listen, they would find this podcast, and they would hear themselves in these stories, and they would feel less alone, and maybe even feel compelled to do something about it and shift themselves. And so I share that with you, that desire to make it mean something. Like my Dr. David Laughlin always says on our podcast, you've already paid the tuition. Like you've already gone through the hardest part. So now make it mean something. Now do something with it, right? And you have. You have.
Yeah. And that's what I hope that the book will do, is that, it'll touch somebody, and not just the cancer patient, but also a family member or a doctor. When I gave it to my oncologist, he read it immediately, like in the next day, and he's like, Miss Veronica, that was the best book. He said, may I share it with us? I was like, yeah, I'll get you some more copies, So he was very, very pleased with it. He said, I can't believe the details in it. And I said, well, I took good notes. And he finally told me at one of the next to the last meetings that we had, he said, Miss Veronica, we never really liked you a lot. And I said, I know that. He said, I said, why? He said, because you asked too many questions. I said, I'm an informed consumer. He just died laughing. They're just not used to that over here. But, but they learned to love me. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, and that's something that I think is really important when you're going through it. And most cancer survivors will tell you that you really need to be your biggest advocate. You have to go through that journey giving super what's about yourself, because
you have to give them feedback, like the cancer related fatigue. He said, he never had anybody ask about that drug. And I was like, well, I need it if I can get it. And, I had to check and see if there are any contraindications for all the drugs that I was taking, and there weren't. So I was able to I said, you need to be prescribing this for all of your patients if they have cancer related fatigue. I said, because it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
Yeah. All right. So I guess to kind of start to wind down, I want to talk about the reset portion of the framework that I present to people, and ask you how you now take care of yourself. How do you make sure that Ronnie's well fed, well drank, well rested, well, all the things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it starts with my day. The first thing I say when I wake up in the morning is, I believe, I believe, I believe. And I know this day is going to be a good day. And, before my feet hit the floor, I've said a prayer of thanks and gratitude for just having that day and making sure that I can have an impact on that day. And I ask God to lead me and guide me through the day and show me what it's going to be. And, let me know if there's anything that's going to come up that he and I both can handle, so it starts at the beginning of the day. It starts actually at the end of the other day. So I'm great. I just have a lot of gratitude, Matthew. I've always had a lot of gratitude. I do journals. I do a gratitude journal, at night, and I do an intention journal in the morning. So I do that probably more strenuously now than I did before, but it's just more a part of me now. So that's something that I've reset. I make sure that I do those every morning, every night, and I set my intentions, and I check to see, did I make all my intentions for the day, for my gratitude, am I grateful for all those things every day? So that's one way that I kind of reset.
There's a quote that I like that says, it didn't happen to you, it happened for you.
Yeah.
And, I think I'd love to get your perspective on that, because it could be probably pretty easy to get pissed off at the cancer, probably pretty easy to have to face all that stuff.
Yeah.
When you hear that quote, didn't happen to you, it happened for you, do you want to tell me to shut up and punch me in my face, or
not at all? Not at all. No, because, my mentor, Amelia, she told me, she said, every experience that God puts into your life and every person that he puts there's the perfect preparation for the future that you can see. I think it's Corrie ten Boom who said that. I'm not sure.
That's good.
But, I always look at all of my experiences, and this comes from living in the moment, of like now, this moment with you, it's something big, it's something good. It's going to be a stepping stone to something incredible, I know. So it's those moments that you just take, and you have to register them and be a part and be active in it, and know that, this is for you. this just didn't happen that I sent that email and your staff wrote back quickly and said, yeah, you can be on the show. That was supposed to be, it's all part of the plan. And I just figured the cancer was part of the plan for me moving through my life cycle in whatever way God has planned for me or my higher power has planned for me. And I don't know exactly what's on the other side, but I'm hoping it's something good.
I got this great big grin on my face. And if you're listening to us, you can't see it, but I'm just listening to you and I'm thinking, yes, this is it, man. There was a really powerful meditation that I did during my retreat, and it can be kind of summarized in your story, but I'll share it with people anyways. It was this idea of visualizing the thing that you're hanging on to and putting it all in a suitcase and then walking across the room and setting the case down. And so you're no longer carrying this event anymore. And eventually, when you get through the thing, you kind of like, that's part of the reprogramming efforts, right? Are to go, all right, I'm not that person anymore. That was a thing that happened to me, but now I'm through it. And so that's why I love the way that you articulate that story. And you can put it another way, which is, hey man, you're just at chapter 6 right now, but don't worry, girl. There's 25 chapters in this book. And they can't all be this terrible or this challenging or this feel like, they're uphill. Like there's going to be some downhill chapters in your life. And
there has to be. It can't be all easy, because then you get so accustomed to that, and then something happens that's devastating, and you don't even know how to handle it.
That's it, right?
So when you have those little, what is it they say? You have a setback for a comeback.
Yes.
I just didn't look at the cancer as something bad. I didn't look at it as something horrible. I just looked at it as something I had to go through, and thank God I made it through.
So let's end right there. That word resilience. It is something that you love to talk about, I know. What's the message that you give to maybe young women or young men about, going through tough trials in your life, but you got to get through them?
Yeah, you're going to have them, first of all. And I think that the way that you handle them is through an intellectual way. You'll have time later on to probably emotionally sit down and process it. But from an intellectual standpoint, try and understand, the hows and the whys and the wheres and the whens that it happened. And then try and move through and see if you can process it and try and get through it. From the emotional standpoint, it's not going to give you any kind of benefit to, scream and yell and cry. You're not moving forward in it in any way, So when you attack it from an intellectual standpoint, you can tease all those little components out and figure out, okay, this is a problem. This could be a solution. This could be a solution. This could be a solution. And you can move through it and hopefully overcome the problem. So, and that gives you the resilience, I think, in getting through any kind of difficulty. Is that you can tease it out and really just think about each separate component of it.
Why is that so hard for us? I think it's because the emotion comes quicker than the intellect sometimes.
That's because that emotion is that knee jerk, but that comes from not being in the moment. See, if you're in the moment and you have a something devastating happen to you, you just want to and that's not it. You can't really because once you you've lost your ability to think about it and to try and figure it out. I was trying to think, there was something that happened to me the other day. I can't remember. It could have been driving someplace and I missed an exit or whatever. And I was like, okay, can't freak out because these drivers are crazy today. Got to figure out how I need to go to the next exit and, where I need to cut through. So, you just, for me, I've never been a person that just kind of, I won't say ever lose it because I have, but to just like forget, even in playing basketball, you're down by, 3 points and you need a 3-point shot. It's not the time to go, oh my God, we're not going to get the shot. Somebody's got to step up and take the shot, So I guess I've just had the life, my life has been prepared for this moment. Just like you said, it's not, what did you say? What'd you say about the for you? It wasn't against you. What did
That's
you say?
right. Like it didn't happen to you. It happened.
Didn't happen to us. It happened for me. So all those events in my life didn't happen to me. They happened for me.
That's right.
Everything that I've gone through has happened It's happened for me to get to this point, and I'm so grateful for that. So grateful for that.
I really, really feel compelled right now to just challenge the people who are listening to our podcast to do that exact same thing for themselves. Can you go back and can you take a look at all those difficult chapters in your life and all of the things that feel like they're such a big part of who you are? And how much of that shit can we just honestly set down today? Could today be the final day that you carry some of those stories moving forward? And can you start to renegotiate what your life could look like? And then can you release those beliefs that's the thing, right? Like when I talk about release, it's a lot about those limited beliefs that so many of us have based on who we are, what we've experienced. And then what area of your life can you reset? How can you get more sleep? How can you start eating better? How can you improve your communication with your partners, the people at work? And then finally, what part of your life are you willing to absolutely hit the reset button on and stop running Windows XP and jump into the most current version of this thing and let it roll your life? Because there's total freedom waiting on the other side of doing the work. And if you're willing to take the steps, you can just wake up most days and feel so much better about the way that you're going about it.
I think one of the keys to doing that, though, Matthew, is I think people try and take too big of a step.
Yes, let's talk about that, and then we'll wind down.
Yeah, just too big of a step. I mean, even with my cancer, I wanted to be healed, but, you got to go through 4 rounds of chemo. You got to do 1 round, get through it, do 2 rounds, do 3 rounds, and 4 rounds, do more testing, then do the surgery, then do the radiation. There's no shortcut to it. So you've got to understand the process in order to know what you have to go through and how to pace yourself. So, nothing happens fast. Nothing happens fast. And when you're talking about trying to change your behaviors or trying to change who you are or trying to react to things that have happened to you, you have to do it in slow, steady states. Even when I was doing my workouts while I had chemo, I still worked out every day, not as fast, not as heavy, but I moved every day because I knew that I had to get in that car and drive myself to my chemos, to my chemo treatment. So I think a lot of people just try and do too much and then they get discouraged because they don't move fast enough through the sequence. But, life it's a journey. It really is a journey. I know that's real cliche, but it's a journey. It doesn't, you go on a trip, even if you fly someplace, it's going to take an hour, 2 hours, go someplace. So what happened? You just don't get there. So, it's a process. It's a process. And I think if you live in the moment,
it encourages people to slow down. Like, okay, just slow down.
Yeah. And it's hard to slow down. It's hard to slow down in this day and time with all the technology that we have and the one click here, Amazon, it can be there in an hour.
It's a real test. Okay. We didn't get to a couple of things and I just want you to touch on them super fast. How did you come to be a speech pathologist? What part of your life does that enter the equation?
It got into the wrong line. My coach told me to go over to the building to sign up for media, and I got in the wrong line and started taking the courses and loved them. She wanted me to go into broadcast and journalism, got in the wrong line. So we're going on a road trip one day, and she says, "Ronnie, how are your classes going?" I said, "I am loving speech pathology." She said, "Speech pathology?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I thought you were going for media." I said, "No." I said, "I like speech path."
That's really cool.
Wrong line. All right. And just loved it.
Where does the color analyst piece come in?
So when I came back from Louisiana, I was doing color there? I think I was. I was doing some radio and TV there in Louisiana for the USF, not USF, but no, that's not right. So when I came back moved from Florida back to North Carolina, I was doing color analysis for USF women's basketball. So when I came back to North Carolina, I started doing some color analysis for NC State. So that's how all that got started.
And for people that don't know, color is like there's the person who calls the play-by-play, and then there's the person who literally adds the color to the conversation. And
I started doing just stats. Yeah, I started doing stats, and I was doing really, really good with stats because I was a player. I knew how to do, keep all the stats. And the guys that were doing the play-by-play, he said, "Ronnie, do you want to do the color, and I said, well, I can try it, and so I became his color analyst. So it was
It's
a
so
lot
fun,
of fun,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I
Yeah,
loved it.
I've
I
done it
loved
several
it.
times too. It's a good time. Okay, golfer. We touched on it a couple of times in here, but do you play? And
I
what's your
do.
favorite course to go and take a run on?
Well, there are not a lot of courses in Saudi Arabia. They're
Really?
in Jeddah. Not in Jeddah. They're building them now. They
Okay.
have a beautiful course called Royal Greens. It's up in Marouge. It's about an hour and 15 minutes away, and I drive every weekend to go and play. I'm a high handicapper, but I love being out in the sunshine. It's placed along the Red Sea. The 16th hole is along the Red Sea. I'll send you a picture.
Yes.
The 16th hole is along the Red Sea. It is breathtaking. It's the most beautiful course I've played on in a while. It's beautiful. So I play almost every weekend and just love to get out there and hack. Are you a golfer?
There's a story there, and the story goes that not initially, and then I played a lot in my 20s and 30s, and then I had a back surgery late in my 40s, and my surgeon said, if you want to walk in your 60s, you should stop golfing. And so I've taken like 3 years off, but my boys are really, really into it again. And it's I'm dying not to be out there with them. So I think I might find a way to safely get back into golfing, and I just need to investigate that.
Do a little par 3. Go to a par 3. Don't try and hit long. Just go to a little par 3. Start out there.
Yeah, you're right. It's probably just about playing the short game.
Yeah, just work on that, because that'll still keep you, kind of under control a little bit. But a par 3 would be good.
Well, and like I said, my boys are getting into it. My youngest son is actually on the D1 golf team here at his high school in Arizona, and he's
nice.
He's a really good golfer, and it's inspired me to maybe try it again. Okay, enough about me. Back to you.
Okay.
Traveler. That was the last word that I used to describe, because you're born in the Carolinas. Now you live in Saudi Arabia. Connect those dots.
Oh, I wish I knew how to. So a lot of that comes from curiosity. A lot of it comes from just not knowing a lot about geography and learning. Because when I got the call to come to Saudi Arabia, I really didn't even know where it was. I had to look it up on the map. So that was my first time I came over here was in the late 90s. And I came over, didn't know anything about traveling or anything. And then came back to work back at USF, and then came back again in 2010. And I've been to several countries in Africa, and then gone to Europe a little bit. So I love traveling. I love meeting people. I love different cuisines, that sort of thing. So traveling is nice, and it's fun. It's exciting. I'm rather adventuresome, so I like taking like lots of tours and that sort of thing, and getting out and just seeing the countryside. So
that's awesome. Well, it's been such a treat to have you on our podcast today, and I'll put the book up there. And for folks that want to check it out, we're going to link to it in the show notes as well. Congratulations on getting that thing done. I'm in the midst of writing a book right now, and I know what a gigantic undertaking it is. So I applaud other authors when I get them on. I say bravo, because I know what it took to get it across the finish line.
Keep on keeping on, because you'll get it out there. You'll get it out there. It's needed. I'm sure it'll be a great book too.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1. To help you feel less alone. 2. Encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3. When you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.